Instead of just doing single-day trips, we're able to provide more of a multi-day hut-to-hut experience for our guests.
This is Mountain Escapes, a backcountry podcast, connecting backcountry enthusiasts like you with the legendary backcountry lodges of British Columbia, Canada. Each episode, we highlight one of BC's unique backcountry lodges through conversation with the lodge owners and operators.
One of the world's finest alpine settings.
Everybody has to have a transceiver, a shovel, and a boat.
Mountain Escapes, a backcountry podcast. Your host is Brad Harrison, who's worked and adventured in remote settings his entire life. He's the executive director of the Backcountry Lodges of British Columbia Association, former owner-operator of Golden Alpine Holidays, and current owner-operator of Call West Alpine Adventures. Now, here's Brad Harrison.
Welcome to another episode of the BLBCA's Mountain Escapes. Today we're pleased to have a chance to chat with Bobbie Douglas, manager of Tyax Adventures located in the Southern Chilcotin Mountains near Goldbridge, BC. Hi Bobbie, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Brad. I really appreciate it.
Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to visit Tyax or your operation. It's definitely on my bucket list, and many of my friends have been to your place and used it as an operation for mountain biking mainly. How long have you been in business?
My parents started the operation back in 1997, and it started off as my dad flying. He had his commercial pilot's license. He had a bunch of friends from his mountain bike racing past that were like, hey, I think you can load us up in that airplane and fly us into the backcountry. From there, it slowly evolved, and about, we went from one guide to probably 6 guides, and at times we'd have 12 guides out on the trail. And then 10 years ago, we bought the backcountry camps and we incorporated that into our operation as well. So now, instead of just doing single-day trips, we're able to provide more of a multi-day hut-to-hut experience for our guests. As far as my time in the operation, I always joke that I've been getting paid for the last 12 years to work. But before that, it was just family fun that I was involved in.
What are your current responsibilities? Are you still a part owner, or did Blackcomb buy the whole shooting match?
Blackcomb Helicopters or Alpex Expeditions owns the company. I am the operations manager, so I deal with all the day-to-day stuff.
So you mentioned mountain biking. What other kinds of trips would people potentially, or what kind of activities would people participate in if they went to your facility in the summer?
Right now, we are offering trail running tours. We are doing backcountry hiking tours, and we also do some horseback trips. Most of the single day stuff is either hiking or biking, but the rest of it is primarily multi-day.
And are most of your trips guided or unguided, or?
I would say that most of our trips are actually unguided, so we'll just fly people into the backcountry and they'll make their own way home, whether that's through camps or self-supported. It's actually a smaller part of our operation that's guided. We only have 4 full-time guides that make the magic happen.
So most people would provide their own food as well.
Our backcountry camps are almost steadily booked from when we open around the beginning of July to the end of September. So a lot of people will just fly into the backcountry and then they'll spend their time coming back through the camps and we'll cook for them. People come out a couple times guided and then they're open to doing it on their own, which I don't blame them for. But there's obviously still, maybe not right now, but normally a large number of international clients who are quite happy having a guide to help them out.
And do you have like a central main lodge?
We have a base that we run our float plane out of. That is on the same property as Tyax Lodge. So just to add to the confusion, we operate off the same property as well.
Your outside lodges, or the ones that are away, like what do they typically look like? Are they large structures, small structures? What's the kind of setup?
Depends on the cabin. Some of ours are our Eldorado cabin, for instance, which is our only winter cabin. It's more of an ACC style hut. It's quite small. It has beds, everything, kitchen, all in one cabin. The other camps that we run, Spruce, for instance, or Bear Paw, they actually have a lot bigger structure where the bathroom is separate and they have a kitchen and a nice outdoor eating area. Most of those ones as well are set up with canvas style wall tents. So our clients come and they will stay in those tents, whereas El Dorado, for instance, they're all staying in the cabin.
To me, it sounds like quite a logistical challenge for you with all these different types of trips coming all through the summer.
Logistics are my best trait and worst enemy at the same time, I'd say. It's very logistically rich. Sometimes we're ending up having to put food on horses and horse it into our backcountry camp. So you're looking at a week's worth of horse travel just to get food in for 50 people maybe. That'll last 1 week and sometimes even longer. Thankfully, we're fortunate enough to have approval with BC Parks now to utilize a helicopter for a certain amount of flights. It doesn't really cover all of our flights, but definitely takes the load off a little bit there. There's lots going on. It's fun. It's intense for the time that we're running, but I love it. It's a passion.
So do you have pack trains and take people in on a pack train?
Totally. Yeah. So we do offer horseback riding tours that sometimes it has guests on it. Sometimes it doesn't. It really depends on if people book, but yeah, we'll have anywhere from 3 at minimum to 9 horses that will head into the backcountry to supply food, and sometimes guests will take along on those.
And where do you source your food?
We primarily use Cisco for all of our ordering. It gets delivered to Lillooet, then we then have to put it into a different transporter truck, get it shipped up to us, and then we either unload it, repack it, and send it in an aircraft up, or we send it in a horse up. So just a little tip of the iceberg, I guess, as far as logistics. It's not straight to the door.
How would a guest arrive at Goldbridge? Where do they usually come from? Do they fly in? Do they drive in?
We do offer charter flights from Whistler, Vancouver, but if people are driving, I usually say that we're located just west of Lillooet or north of Pemberton.
What would be some of the most interesting challenges you've faced?
I would say forest fires and smoke. That can easily shut us down for multiple days, and it's always super, super challenging. Another one is staffing. We have some different groups of staff that we need, and finding people who want to stay for a long time, always a challenge.
It's kind of you have to love the place to want to work there for an extended period, I guess.
Totally. And, for people who are being our hosts, for instance, they're going out into the backcountry and they're working for 2 weeks at a time usually. And there's times where they'll be out there by themselves and they're nowhere near any sort of civilization. If they wanted to walk out, it would take 2 days for them to get to here, which, I'm not even sure I would consider it completely civilization, but it's a long way. And finding someone who's comfortable in the backcountry with bears and animals and the elements is a pretty special little role and person, inevitably, to go along with it.
This is the BLBCA's Mountain Escapes podcast. Thank you for listening. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on whatever platform you hear us on. Now, back to the podcast.
This is the Mountain Escapes, brought to you by the BLBCA. We are chatting with Bobbie Douglas, manager of Tyax Adventures. Welcome back. You mentioned the summer operation earlier. How does your winter season differ, or do you have a winter operation?
We have a winter op. It's quite short. It really only goes from Christmas until about April 15th, depending on the clients and if they're interested in going and doing some spring skiing rather than powder skiing. But it's all self-guided and they basically just rent our hut. The summer season is a little bit different. It's definitely hands-on, very intense. We have a lot of staff and a lot of guides, and it's usually run snow to snow. So by the time the winter snowpack has melted off enough to get our riders out there, it's usually around July 1st. it's funny because last year we were running July 15th because the snowpack was so late. But this season, when we're actually not operating, it cleared up so early, we could have probably been running June 15th. So normally we'd go from about July 15th until third week of September, and then it's getting really cold again and everything's freezing and there's snow on the ground. And it's a special person again that wants to be out there if you're willing to push your bike through snow.
And so in the winter, what are the activities that your guests generally engage in?
They are all doing backcountry ski touring or split boarding. We will transfer them from Pemberton into the cabin. They book a week-long stint. There's no guide, no host. They bring all their own food and supplies, and they will ski tour for the week, and we'll pick them back up at the end. So not heli skiing, just ski touring, but we do provide a transfer for them.
Do you get any snowshoers?
The demand's always been for skiers. It's also a very popular cabin. It's almost always booked the whole way through, and we have a pretty long wait list of people who want to go in there. It's not something you can just walk up and book a week, for instance.
Is there a crossover between your winter and summer guests? I.e., can they be the same people?
Oh, totally. Yeah. A lot of our winter guests actually come and visit us in the summer as well. I'd say usually they come visit us in the summer first, and then they find out about the winter cabin and they're super interested.
What do you think your guests, mainly your return ones, I would say, or particularly your return ones, what do they value most about their experience at Tyax Adventures?
The remote backcountry experience, the high alpine riding, the long ribbony single track. Some of these trails were from horsebackers back in the late 1800s that have been here for years and years, and they're just this long, beautiful, endless single track. It's quite awesome. But I think also being able to access the Alpines so easily, depending on the group structure, is what people really come and enjoy.
You're really in a particularly strong position to influence, inform, educate a lot of backcountry users. How do you like to positively impact those users?
We have a lot of wording that we put out to our guests to start with. We're big advocates for respecting the backcountry and making sure people ride on trail and pick up their trash. Obviously, we bring a lot of people into the parks with our aircraft, so it's really important that we make sure that they understand. Another part is our guides. Our guides are great. They educate our guests as they go, and how to respect wildlife, how to respect other park users. And for me, the biggest thing is staying on trail. I'd say there's a lot of areas where it's easy to go off because maybe the trail is not as defined, but the reality is that you still need to stay on trail. And we've done a couple videos with groups as well to try and promote responsible backcountry use. And I think they've reached a successful amount of people, but something we're definitely passionate about.
British Columbia, Canada is a backcountry skier's paradise. With epic snowfall, vast alpine terrain, and cozy remote backcountry lodges. Your adventure begins here at backcountrylodgesofbc.com.
Well, as you mentioned, you spent a lot of your younger years with your dad at Tyax and your mom, I assume, and you kind of more or less grew up in that environment. I just wondered if you could share a memorable story, funny, exhilarating, scary, otherwise.
Dad was always keen for me to get out there. He was very supportive. And my mom is too, no doubt. But I remember my first trip I ever did, I think something had happened to one of their tail guides, and I'm 14. I'm like just allowed to legally work. He looks at me and he's like, "You're in, kid. You're going to ride down from Warner today." Oh, okay. And I mean, I was like probably 90 pounds, maybe less. I was so small. And sure enough, we head out to Warner, and it's me, the lead guide, and 8 men, like 40-year-old men. And they're just looking at me like, what is this little girl gonna do for us? All my dad told me is like, all you gotta do is pick up the pieces. You just get to the end. If anything goes wrong, you radio back. And I can just remember the look on all these guys' faces when we made it out, and they were like, "So how many times have you done this before?" was like, nope, this is my first time. And from then I was hooked and I never looked back. It was fun. I don't regret it at all.
If listeners are interested in taking an adventure at Tyax Adventures, how would they reach you to learn more about your operation?
We can be reached by our website at www.tyaxadventures.com. And our website is fantastic, actually. We just updated it and it's very easy to use.
This has been the BLBCA's Mountain Escapes. We've been fortunate to spend time with Bobbie Douglas, manager of Tyax Adventures. And we thank you for listening in. Take good care.